Hi and welcome to Shaky Sports Journeys. Thanks for joining us again. Please do subscribe free to the channel, be much appreciated. Special guest for you today, a very highly regarded sports presenter, especially in cricket in Pakistan. A welcome to the show, Zainab Abbas. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. I want to take you through a quick snippet of your journey to where
Yeah.
you've got to date. But I wanted to start by mentioning your dear parents, because they must have had a massive influence on you. Your father was a domestic cricketer in Pakistan, and your mother is a very senior member of the PTI party in Pakistan. Tell me about their influence.
Well, their influence was massive, always. My mother was a huge cricket fan. Even when she wasn't really working in that field, she was still covering on and off, tournaments like the World Cup in 1999. I think she was covering it for a newspaper in Pakistan, and she was covering the leadership styles, the different leadership styles of all the captains in the World Cup. So because leadership was her speciality. And she used to watch all the games and follow it very closely. And my father used to play cricket. He didn't really take it up as a professional career, but he has played at a decent level. He's played some first class games. He's played with a lot of the current greats that we have for Pakistan, that have played represented Pakistan at a national level. So I think that that influence always had to be there because it was sort of in my genes. And then growing up in a family which was completely cricket fanatic and completely crazy about sports, I think that really was also something which unconsciously influenced me just by being there and watching everybody follow all kinds of sports. Sports was a big thing in our household. I mean, that was the main form of entertainment, in fact. And it wasn't just cricket, it was also tennis, it was also football. But cricket predominantly because that is the biggest sport in Pakistan. So yeah, I mean, it was just, I think it was something which was very natural. It had to happen at some point. I didn't know how it'll happen, but and I never thought it would. But I mean, and now that I look back, I see that it was always it was always something that was in my destiny.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like cricket was in the blood, definitely, especially with your mother. I didn't realize that your mother was so involved in cricket as well. So, I mean, that must have been amazing to be around that as a child. Um, I wanted to go back. I wanted to talk to you about your studies. You actually travelled to England to do your MBE in marketing and strategy at Warwick University in England. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I did my master's in MSc, actually, in marketing and strategy from University of Warwick. But before that, I also did my degree from here in Aston University in Birmingham. So I think I spent like my prime years within the UK. I also worked in between at Caterpillar for a year in Peterborough. I got a job there, so I was working there like a proper 9 to 5 job. Obviously, had nothing to do with what I'm doing now, but I always wanted to do a master's. I mean, that was something that was always in my in my plans. And I knew that if I don't do it now, like because I graduated and then I immediately did my master's from University of Warwick, because I was like, if I don't do it now, I don't know if I'll come back to studying afterwards. So it's just better to get it done in one go and get and over and done with your education. So there was an opportunity with Warwick. Warwick is a really well reputed university college, and I had a really good experience there. And I learned a lot. And obviously, um, in the end, I didn't do anything in marketing and strategy, but like it was something that obviously was an essential part of me, sort of essential part of my education, and just getting all the exposure, being in the university there, making friends. So I think it was a really important time in my life, and I utilized it pretty well.
And it sounds like it. You didn't waste any time. You just got down to business, got it done. How did you like? Obviously, it's a big change. You came from Pakistan and you came into the UK. How did you adjust to life in the UK?
Well, I mean, you know, I think it's just with me, and I guess with most people, you do learn to adapt with a passage of time. So obviously, initially, it was a bit of a uh, cultural shock coming from Pakistan and then being here. And I think I was only maybe like 18 at that time, maybe 18, 19. I was quite young when I entered UK. So having to live independently and doing everything yourself. Pakistan is very different. If you are privileged enough, then you kind of have are spoon fed everything, so you don't have to do much there, and your life is very much taken care of, and you live a very sheltered, protected life with a lot of help around you to support you in every little way. But the big thing that I learned by coming here was how to be independent, and doing everything yourself, from basic things like you very quickly learn that you have to wash the dishes yourself and change the bedding yourself and do everything yourself. And you don't get that in Pakistan, because like I said, Pakistan, you also have a lot of Yeah, so I think it was more about me sort of coming to the UK and becoming independent and learning all these things, from doing the dishes to doing your laundry, to learning how to pay your bills. Like I said, in Pakistan, you live a very sheltered life. You haven't been exposed to what real life is all about. It's about taking responsibility. So I think it definitely, makes you mature enough to be more responsible towards yourself, everyone around you. And yeah, I think that was the biggest lesson. And eventually you adapt, like all human beings, you do adapt in the end. It's just about getting used to your surroundings. And I was fortunate enough to make some friends very easily. So I think that was also a support system. Also, I have a lot of family here in different parts. I have family in London, I have family in Birmingham, in Manchester. So I was always blessed in that sense, that it wasn't really just me being on my own. I always have that kind of had that kind of support. My mom's family, her sisters, they all live here. So for me, this was like a second home in that sense. So I had a very good experience.
No, sounds like it. Sounds like it. Brilliant. And many congratulations for what you achieved there. Up to 2015, you were a makeup artist, so a very different career to what you're in now. What was that like?
Well, I just, I was always somebody who would wanted to do something that I loved and enjoyed. And I was always a very creative person. I mean, even in school and college, I was always more creative. I was more somebody who was into communication rather than the academic side or theoretical side of things. I don't think I was always the studious type. I always wanted to do something which I really loved. And I think cricket was obviously my number one passion, but then I was also passionate about beauty and, areas which were related to that. And I think during the course of my education, I developed an interest in that, and I started doing. I remember actually at university level, I started doing makeup for people, and then I realized that okay, actually I could make a bit of money from it. So and that's how it all started initially. And then I thought, okay, maybe if I can actually get some qualification or do some kind of course, then I'll be. So I did a couple of courses in Pakistan, because eventually I knew that I'd move back to Pakistan and set something up there. So I did a couple of courses there, then I'd help out in backstage fashion shows here. And so I was doing all of that. And then also, even when I finished my education, I didn't really want to do, like, even when I did my master's, I just didn't want to do a 9 to 5 job. So I was doing this on the sides and making money out of it. So that was one passion that was always there. And then eventually, when I went back to Pakistan, I set something up for myself, and I was doing reasonably well in that, doing all kinds of transformations for people, and involved in that field of beauty. But then of course, my fate was had some other plans for me.
So now I'd imagine you don't do much makeup yourself. You probably get your makeup done for you before you go on set. So that's a welcome change, I imagine. But you auditioned around that 2015 time for the World Cup program. Um, what made you go for the audition? And obviously you were extremely successful in it.
Yeah, I think my mother is somebody who really encouraged me to go and try it out. Actually, I didn't even know if I'm going for an audition. She was saying to me that there is an opportunity that's opened up in a very a reputed news channel in Pakistan, because there's like 3 or 4 news channels that are really there's Geo, there's ARY, there's Dunia. So there's a couple of all these channels that are really doing well for the last I don't know how many years. And they were she found out that they're doing something for the World Cup, and she said, oh, why don't you do something, you're so passionate about the World Cup, and you're so passionate about cricket. And I said, I wasn't too sure because I hadn't got any media training.
Okay.
And obviously I didn't know what the media world was about. To be honest, I didn't have much knowledge of the local market as such, because remember, I spent 7-8 years in England, so I
Yep.
wasn't really in exactly in touch with what's happening in that sort of field. I knew my cricket, but that's about it. So I went in, and obviously they had a formal initial chat with me, and then they were like, oh, why don't you give an audition? And I was like, we're planning on doing something. It wasn't exactly it wasn't exactly confirmed as to what the show is going to be about, but we're planning on doing something, so why don't you give an audition? So I said, and they gave me a couple of topics to prepare. They just wanted to see how I'm in front of the camera, how my confidence is. So they had a presenter ask me questions, and I was sitting like a guest, because at that time I didn't have any training to be a presenter. And I was very comfortable, because for me this was something which I which was my strength as it is to talk about something that I love. So that was a rarity for a girl in Pakistan. That was something that was you don't find a lot within our setup, to know that much, to that amount of detail. So I think I was maybe lucky, because my boss at that time, obviously he was a fresh graduate from Canada, and he was looking for fresh faces. And you don't get that always. You don't get people who are always very welcoming and accepting towards something new. So I think I was lucky in that sense. And then when I gave the audition, in the end I found out that okay, we're doing a show with Saeed Ajmal, who was, by the way, at his peak at that point of time. I think he was obviously going through his bans of
Yep.
he's been banned several times in his career for his action. But we had him, we had Imran Nazir, we had Sarfraz Nawaz. So we had a really good team sort of working together. And I realized at that point that how big an opportunity it is, that I'm going to be, sharing the same stage as all these people. But of course, I thought that this is all short lived. I didn't know that they're eventually going to, sign. Initially, it was just to sign me on for the show, but then they eventually hired me permanently after the show, because it was a huge success.
Well, absolutely it was. You've never looked back. You've gone on to host shows such as Cricket Dawangi, Sawal Cricket Ka, which are very, very popular shows. You've done fantastically well, but all the really proud moment for you and your family must have been not so long ago, 2019. What an honor. You became the first Pakistani female to become a presenter in the International Cricket Council's Cricket World Cup. That's unbelievable. And you mentioned there opportunities for girls in Pakistan to come into things such as media and break into cricket commentary and hosting is probably few and far between. And you've kind of knocked that barrier down, and I hope you've knocked that down for future generations as well of girls to come through. But what a moment for you and your loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think with me, it's I never, if you ask me, it was never, I never really planned too much in my life in terms of, oh, what I'm going to be doing next. My aim has always been to do good work. And I kind of like to live in the present, and not over plan my future as well, because I feel like you don't want to be in a situation where you end up getting disappointed that you didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve at some point. So I think there are certain things that you just need to not focus on, and opportunities is definitely something that comes by. If you're good enough, you will get your share of opportunities. And with me as well, I remember the World Cup was coming up, and I had no idea that I'd be working for the ICC, but I was doing an interview for somebody, and they asked me, said, "Oh, if there's anything that's left in your bucket list that you would like to do." And I thought about it for a second, and I said, "Oh, I'd love to work with the ICC on, on a World Cup or something. I've never worked in a World Cup." And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I got a call. So it was literally, it was a shock. But yeah, that's how they obviously they already knew about my work, and they'd seen me, and they wanted me on board to be a part of their setup and bring, cover all the World Cup games and do interviews. And we had a show as well, online show. So it was amazing. It was an amazing opportunity. And everybody was super proud, because when you're the if you have the first mover advantage, and if in whatever field you're working in, then it's definitely something to be proud of. And there was no, I mean, I was the first one in that sense. There was nobody before me who'd actually reached that point. And it wasn't just a female, it was no male either. Of course, the cricketers are there, the ex-cricketers, but I'm talking about somebody who hasn't played the game. So we didn't have that kind of representation from Pakistan ever. So I think I'm just really grateful that I got this opportunity. I was really humbled by it, and I made the most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you've done fantastically well. I love your work. I see you on the screens regularly now. You've just finished hosting another successful PSL tournament. You've done numerous PSL tournaments now. How do you enjoy doing that?
Well, this was my sixth year of doing PSL. PSL is like home for me now, because I started in 2016, I think, and at that time we didn't really know. It was such a new product. We didn't really know what we were becoming a part of. We didn't Nobody had expected that it would become so big, and it would become so huge for all the cricket fans, and for Pakistan to have its own league, and to have all these international players play in that league, and then play within Pakistan. And now for the last few years, I think it was just incredible. So I think for me, it's like I always enjoy the PSL, because it represents everything that Pakistan is about. It's cricket, it's culture. It brings a lot of entertainment together. Of course, now we're in COVID times, so things are a little different. But when we had the crowds and we had the entertainment aspect, it really gives a soft image of Pakistan cricket and Pakistan. So I think I'm just glad to be part of it, and I really enjoy doing my studio work or whatever every time I do, because it's like it's always so exciting, and it's always so different every year.
I've had quite a few guests from the great tournament, PSL tournament. I've had the likes of Darren Sammy, David Vise, JP Duminy on the show, and they all talk so highly of the experience in Pakistan. It's great to hear. Obviously, my father comes from Lahore, so I've got a lot of connection with Pakistan. So it's amazing to see people coming back to Pakistan. Obviously, we've got England soon to come in the near future. So it's really exciting times for all Pakistani supporters. You've worked with some household names in these years, that last 5-6 years. I'm not going to ask you to give your favorites, because we might upset some of the other ones, but name me three that you've really, really enjoyed working with and you've learned a lot from.
I mean, there's so many. Like literally, when somebody asks me that, I have to think back, and who should I name, or who should I mention? Because honestly, there's been so many. But I know I can speak from a personal point of view. Of course, everybody has been great, and you learn. Whoever new comes on board, you learn so much from them. All the ex-cricketers, all the commentators, and then obviously the World Cup was a different ball game altogether, because every day you were working with a new person,
Yeah.
and new talent, and you were working from people from all countries. So I think that was great. But for me, I think when I started my career, is when I started PSL. I hadn't really done a lot of broadcasting, international broadcasting as such. I had just done a lot of local work. So that was my first step into at an international level. And I was not really familiar with how international broadcast works. I was just sort of thrown into the deep end, and I had to learn on the job. But what really helped me was having someone like Alan Wilkins at that point, as a because he's somebody who is also a commentator and a presenter, and he gave me certain tips, and he realized that, I'm new to this, and he gave me certain tips. Of course, I mean, I was, like I said, I wasn't really 100% sure about how to go about things, and how does the world of broadcast work? How does live TV work? It's very different. It's very, it's very challenging, because you're multitasking, you're managing your guests, and you're also doing, listening to your directors, and there's so much chaos in the background that to keep your focus, it becomes quite tough for somebody who's not done it. So I hadn't really done it at that point, because we didn't really have that kind of opportunity in Pakistan, right? It was very much like Pakistani shows which were in Urdu.
Yeah.
So there was no English show as such that we had. PSL was the first venture that we did, where we wanted to give it a global feel, and do everything in English, and to reach to different kinds of audiences. So I think he really helped me out. Like, he'd help me and tell me, like, oh, don't do this way, no need to say this, linking, how to link things, and like little things. And I think whatever he told me, to be honest, I still carry that till date. Although now, obviously, it's different in the sense where I thankfully don't have to think about much in terms of what I'm doing and how I'm saying, because I've gone past that stage. But I'm just saying that, he was very helpful. So he is definitely somebody who I would like to name, and he knows that. I've always said to him that he's like a mentor to me. And in terms of fun, like, I think I have a lot of fun with a lot of people. Like, I think Wasim Akram, I worked a lot with him now. I've done a lot of like shows. We've shared the same space together, and he's a lot of fun to work with. And he'll always crack a joke or two, and there's never a dull moment around him. So you never get bored around him. He's a very funny guy, and he's got a great sense of humor. So he's good in the company sense. He'll always, him or Rami, so the local people. Bazad has got a very dry sense of humor. So all the local commentators have their own element that they're bringing. But then who else? I think internationally, Michael Slater. I've worked quite a lot with him. I've done a couple of leagues with him, and he's again somebody who really helps you out, and he makes you feel comfortable. If you have a guest who makes you feel comfortable, then it really makes your job easy. So not everybody has that art of doing it that way. But sometimes you'll just ask a question, and you'll get an answer, and you'll have to take the lead. But then there's certain guests who will sort of take the lead as well, and make it a more balanced show, rather than just make it more interactive and fun, rather than just a question and answer session. So yeah, he's there. Michael Atherton,
Well, I love
I think
Michael Atherton. I love Michael Atherton. I think he's brilliant.
yeah, there's so much to learn from him. I mean, with him, I think just his knowledge, and his the way he studies the game, his analysis, and more importantly, he's like one of the most humble human beings that I've met. He's so interested in Pakistan cricket. He's so passionate about it, and he visited Pakistan last year. No, was yeah, it was last year. Visited last year, and we took him out. I remember, and he was just such a nice human being to be around. So I think that these are the people that inspire you, and despite the fact that they've achieved so much, you were never able to tell, because they're so down to earth and humble about it.
Well, you mentioned Wasim Akram. He's my childhood hero. 1992 World Cup final. I still remember. I can picture myself in the back garden practicing my left arm, changing ball to hand. So it's amazing that you're getting to work with these caliber of people. David Gower as well. You've just worked with as well at the PSL. Another fantastic commentator and presenter. So listen, it's brilliant, unbelievable where you're getting to. You're now over in England, about to be a big series between Pakistan and England. So exciting times. My kind of final question for you, Zainab, is what advice do you have for a young Zainab Abbas sitting in Karachi or Lahore or Islamabad? What would you say to them if they wanted to follow the likes of the path that you have taken?
Well, I mean, I think I get that a lot from like young girls as well. And I'm really happy to see, firstly, I'd like to add that I'm really happy to see that that's the kind of change that I've been able to make in the last 6, 7 years. I think when I started, after a couple of years, you get recognition and you get recognition in different forms, people writing into you, people, you get awards, or there's so many different forms of recognition. But for me, the most satisfactory recognition has been when a mother has come with a young daughter who's a 13, 14-year old and said that she wants to be doing what I'm doing. And that has been a real wake up call for me, that okay, I'm like I'm able to inspire somebody to take up this field. Because remember, when I started, I didn't really have anyone to look up to, and I was uh, unaware. I was just sort of, like I said, thrown into the deep end. So I think that for me is, I always find it to be very heartwarming. And as far as what message I have, I think message that from whatever I've learned is that there are no shortcuts in your journey. It's taken me 7 years to be where I'm at, of constantly working hard and constantly being very honest towards and committed towards what I do. I think if there's one thing that no one will ever hear about me, is that is there's any element of unprofessionalism or anything like that, because I've been very serious about whatever I've done. I've enjoyed it, but at the same time, I've been professional about it. So I feel like you have to be committed, you have to be professional, and more importantly, you need to know the game. That is the most important thing, because you don't reach a certain point unless you have an understanding and you grasp exactly what's going on that field. You can't be a sports presenter without knowing the sport. It's just as simple as that. I mean, tomorrow if somebody asks me to present, let's say, a football, I probably won't be able to do it because I don't have that in-depth understanding. I'd probably just refuse myself. And that is the kind of attitude that you need to have, that you need to know, if you have got it in you to understand the depth of the game. And especially a sport like cricket, which has certain levels of technicalities, you need to have a deeper understanding of that and have a passion for the game. Because if you have the passion, then you'll automatically be able to follow the game and be able to deliver in the best way possible. So I think that, yeah, these are my messages, that you need to be committed, you need to be passionate. As cliched as they are, these are the tricks that have worked for me. And if you're not if you're looking for overnight fame, then this is definitely not the field for you.
No, it's fantastic advice. What you mentioned there, it's not people probably see you sitting in front of in front of the cameras. You're looking glamorous, you're ready for action, but they don't see the effort that you probably spend in the evenings researching, gaining knowledge, knowing exactly what each player brings to a team, how they can add value. There's so much to it. I think you're a fantastic role model, Zainab, for all women around the world. But Pakistan is a country that I think needs female role models like yourself. And I think you're doing a fantastic job. I enjoy all your punditry. I think you have great camaraderie with your guests, and I wish you all the best and what's yet to come. Exciting times ahead. We've got a T20 World Cup coming, so I'm sure you'll be a big part of that.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. Obviously, we've got England coming to Pakistan for two T20s. We've got New Zealand coming to Pakistan for, I think, 3 1-days and three T20s, like a limited overs, a white ball series. I'm not exactly sure. But right now, my focus is obviously just the England versus Pakistan series, which is going to be here in the UK. And then after that, I'm doing the 100, which is again a new concept and an exciting new tournament that's opening up. So it'll be interesting to see how well that, or how unwell that's received by the public, because it's a different concept. So yeah, I just, like I said, I take step by step and I take every opportunity in my stride.
Well, listen, please hang on for 1 second, but thank you very much for your time today.
No problem. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.